Oh, hello. Hello. And a very happy National Video Games Day to you and yours. I'm Kent Brindley, the vintage action figure, animation, music, and video game geek. Um, it's National Video Games Day. It's in honor of gamers. Um, Video gaming for me, and we all have our story that started us off. Christmas Eve of 1988, I unwrapped the NES and Super Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt. Good game. It started me on, I was about 4 at the time, and it started me on the road to being a video gamer. Never a professional, but a video gamer nonetheless. Now let's look back at a childhood with the NES. Gaming for me evolved from the NES to the N64, straight to PlayStation 2, and I've been a Sony guy ever since. Right on up through the PS3 and 4. I knew whose houses to go to find Sega and play Sonic the Hedgehog 2, or to find the SNES and play Super Mario World, which sadly cannot join the list of top 10 NES games. Nevertheless, also let's roll through some honorable mentions. I was a kid at the time, and I was still enjoying like Little Nemo, the Dream Master, Yonoid, Tom and Jerry. Let's see, Monster in My Pocket was a good video game at the time. Bionic Commando, I remember enjoying. Stuff like Battletoads, Double Dragon, Mike Tyson's Punch Out were enjoyable at the time, but couldn't quite make the list. Also not on the list, Legend of Zelda. I could never get into Legend of Zelda. I could never get past, say, the first 5 minutes of the game, and just soured me to it. Anyway, on to the top 10 list of NES games according to me in my childhood. Since we've already been through the ones that did not age so well and those that deserve to be on the list but just kind of missed out. Number 10, excuse me. Let's do this the right way. Number 10, Bugs Bunny Birthday Blowout by Kemco. Crazy Castle and Birthday Blowout were two Bugs Bunny games that came out through Kemco in 1989 and 1990, respectively. It's Crazy Castle is by far the more popular of the Bugs Bunny games, but I just found it a little repetitive and right up to repeating most of the same characters over and over again, maybe in different locations. Birthday Blowout was more of a side scroller, and it reminded me of the Mario games. Bugs was throwing a birthday party and neglected to invite his Looney Tunes pals. And he a stinker. So now he has to go through boss battles with Elmer Fudd, Daffy Duck, Wile E. Coyote. I think even Porky Pig got in on the act. But you never think of Porky Pig as a violent person. Well, anyway, with friends like Bugs, who really needs enemies? And I'm sorry, Looney Tunes to me was always Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote. eventually Sylvester and Tweety grew on me, and that's it for me and Looney Tunes. The trifecta of episodes where Elmer is hunting Bugs and Daffy together are classics, and those are my favorite Bugs Bunny shorts. Anyway, where were we? Number 9. Number 9. Captain Bucky O'Hare by Konami. All right. In all honesty, if not for a Saturday morning cartoon, Bucky O'Hare aired about 7 o'clock in my local market. It came on just for Toxic Crusaders. I watched the one, avoided the other. Anywho, if not for Saturday morning cartoons, I wouldn't know who Bucky O'Hare even was, let alone rented the game once, twice, thrice. Anyway, the play style was very much like my boy Mega Man, in that he was going through 4 planets trying to rescue Willie DeWitt, Deadeye Duck, Android First Class Blinky, and the vivacious and minx-like pilot Jenny. Again, it reminded me so much of Mega Man, and I didn't know it at the time, but there was a method to which planet to clear first, and there was a method in the order to clear the worlds, because once you saved a crew member, they could join you for future fights. Well, so you breeze your way through 4 worlds to save 4 crew members. Easy peasy. Some of you are not familiar with the Mega Man franchise that Bucky O'Hare borrowed very heavily from. You clear those 4 planets, and that is the appetizer. The main course is the Toad Air Marshal's ship, split up between several levels on its own. And then you have to get through that. Again, Bucky O'Hare's video game borrowed very, very heavily from Mega Man, and it honestly did very well for someone who watched the series and collected the figures. That, and if you manage to keep a hand on that cartridge, and it's still in working order, I have researched this on eBay, that game is worth a lot of money now. It's worth a lot. It has to have been rare. Now, number 8. Womp M. I know, don't cancel me. I didn't name this game. I know. And I know now and I didn't know then what I know now, and Wampum was not a good name for a game about a tiny Native American Mega Man type warrior. Wampum by Jalico. 1991, I would have been 7 years old. I didn't know what Wampum even was. And I didn't make the game. This is definitely the most controversial entry in this list. Yeah. Wampum was another Mega Man Light game, and he traveled through different areas and collected different weapons and abilities. At the time, there was just something about that game that drew me in. Enough so that he beat out Bugs Bunny Birthday Blowout, but it'll come back to me what it was. Number 7. Tiny Toon Adventures. Okay. If you were of age in the early 90s and you had access to a local Fox affiliate, you know who the Tiny Toons are. Yes, here we go. Tiny Toon Adventures by Konami. You know who the Tiny Toons are. Each level started out with Buster Bunny as the main hero and his hopping that allowed him to clear platforms. He could be joined by either Plucky Duck in his very limited power of flight, Dizzy Devil and his tornado attack that made him far more formidable against opponents, whereas everyone else had to time and jump on top of their head exactly right, or Furball, who could climb walls. Climb walls oh, quite a bit higher than Plucky could fly. Each level had only two heroes. It started with Buster, and you chose the other one. Choose wisely. As I recall, Buster could only take one, maybe two hits, and then became the other guy, who in turn could only take one, maybe two hits. So you had a lot of dodging to do. Or in the case of Dizzy, you could run down a few enemies because all of their abilities had a very limited timer on them for needing to recharge. And Elmira was always the sub villain, the sub boss. If you knew how to get around her into the exit, you could go on to the boss battle. It was very fun at the time. It borrowed a lot from the idea of the Super Mario games. And I didn't even watch Tiny Toons really. I watched it enough to know who these guys were, but it was just not really on my radar as necessary as appointment viewing every day. Number 6. Yo Joe and Yo Kid. The very first G.I. Joe game for NES was definitely far more fun than the second. And it came out in 'G.I. Joe Real American Hero. It came out in 91 from Taxan and Kid. Now, this is all about the facts that I collected the G.I. Joe figures and the Masters of the Universe figures. And it's all about the facts that G.I. Joe was appointment viewing for me when I was little. At least the Sunbow years of G.I. Joe. Along comes the game in 1991, and it used Duke, Snake Eyes, Blizzard, Captain Gridiron, and Rock and Roll. There were 5 missions, each split up into 3 parts, and each mission had one Joe to command it, so you couldn't even avoid even the worst characters forever. You built teams of 3 by adding 2 characters to the commander of whichever the mission was. And you went up against Cobra in a very Contra-like video game. It was very heavily modeled after Contra. It was a good game, I thought. Now, each character had his own strengths and weaknesses in jumping, in weapon accuracy, and in the power of the weapon. You have to keep an eye on the ammo gauge. You constantly have to collect ammunition because the alternative is to go into fisticuffs And when you're up against Cobra, you want the weapon. Because they're not about to put down their arms simply because you're using fists. Yes. G.I. Joe, Real American Hero, the first of the two games, was a very good game. Number 5. We're going into the Disney Afternoon collection of games with the game that started it all and was the very first Disney Afternoon cartoon. By the time the Disney Afternoon was a thing, DuckTales was long since on in reruns. DuckTales. Now everyone remembers the soundtrack to the very first DuckTales game. And especially the Moon Base. The Moon Base had a great soundtrack to it. Scrooge McDuck is on a race against is on a treasure hunting race against the clock against Flintheart Glomgold. And Magica the Spell is involved in this because reasons. Be on the lookout for Launchpad McQuack to offer you a lift home midway through each mission, or for Scrooge's nephews and his niece Webby to give helpful hints, or for Gyro Gearloose to offer you inventions to help you out. I mean, the first DuckTales from Capcom was just good enough to merit a second DuckTales from Capcom. Great games. Number 4. My boy, Mega Man 2. Mega Man 2 took Mega Man 1 and learned a lot of lessons from it. Mega Man 1, you had 6 robot masters. Mega Man 2 upped the ante to 8 robots, and that has been the standard bearer ever since. Now, Mega Man 2 is good for slot number 4 due to the great robot masters, the great levels, and the iconic music. I was an adult playing the Mega Man Capcom collection for PlayStation before I knew that there was a method to which order to play the levels in, and I have very solid memories of trying to play Quick Man stage without Flash Man's Time Stopper. Yes, I remember those beam traps very well. Number 3, Mega Man 3. Again, this is about the iconic robot masters, the great stages, and the even better theme music awarded to each robot and each stage. It was Mega Man 3 took what Mega Man 2 did and made it somehow better. Now, number 2. I couldn't get away with talking about Sega without talking about Sonic, and no one can talk about nobody can talk about Nintendo and the NES without bringing up Super Mario Brothers. The mushrooms for growth, stomping on Goombas and Koopas in order to defeat them, the flowers for firepower, the warp tube, the dungeon music, Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. 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 The Bowser music, and the fact that Princess Toadstool, at the time it was Princess Toadstool rather than Peach, always was in another castle. Yeah, I still don't know if Toad is giving us a thumbs up or the other one. But I don't see him going, "Hey, good job. The princess is in another castle." I don't think he's giving us a thumbs up, guys. Anyway, number one favorite NES game. Yes. The world map to travel around in, actual different stages with actual different music, and the frog suit, or he's not called a raccoon. It's not a raccoon. It's wait a minute. Okay. All right. It is a raccoon, excuse me. He's a raccoon. That's great. The raccoon suit, the frog suit, the Tanuki suit, and the Hammer Brothers suit. Let alone the lands, rather than repeating the same world over and over and over again, followed by a castle. That made Super Mario Brothers 3 very memorable to me as my absolute favorite NES game of my youth that still survives today to join my favorites list. Now, of course, when I was little, I played like Darkman or RoboCop or Superman. I tried the X-Men game when I was little. Even then, I knew it was a stinker. Even then, Superman, same story. I thought that game was kind of a stinker. Infiltrator was good for the time. Pretty hard, but pretty good. But now you know my top 10 NES games and the honorable mentions. A happy International Video Games Day to you and yours. See you soon.